Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you are co hosts on this channel where we talk all things tabletop role playing games. And I want to apologize today. I will be cutting it relatively shorter. We normally go over an hour, and I want to cut the time down a little bit. But uh, this has to do with world building within the within the community. And today we are going to do some world building, actually some pretty simple world building. You guys know, or if maybe it's your first time even being here, that my plan is to do create an RPG project, and you guys get to see it. And today we're just going to work on some small things, but I will bring up something that has been happening or has happened in the RPG community, and it deals with what we're going to talk about today on World Building Wednesday. And a I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds, but a message was sent out by Wizards of the Coast concerning Dungeons and Dragons in canon, and some people just collectively lost their minds about this. And I thought, you know what, we don't we tend to talk about controversial. And I say that very with a grain of salt. Controversial elements in our role playing games, and especially on this channel. So I thought I would just make a couple of comments about it. And my first comment about the message was that the message talked about the details and the non-adherence to Dungeons and Dragons canon when it comes to their materials. And I think some people think that WotC is um, it is a hobbyist enclave, and they are not beholden to anything else. But rest assured, uh, people that are content creators, large ones like WotC controlling Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property, and everybody else, they're a business. And we, as much as these games are our hobby, it's a business, and part of that business is being is licensing out Dungeons and Dragons, like that ampersand between the and between Dungeons and Dragons is is a trademarked item itself, and so is everything else that Dungeons and Dragons has owns, whether it's the Forgotten Realms and Dritz Duerden, the Drow Elf, and all kinds of things. And some people, I get that part of. Remember, we talked about the 8 types of fun. One of the types of fun that we have in the geekosphere is being a repository of knowledge. The person who knows all the ins and outs of the Dune series, the person who absolutely loves the Lord of the Rings books and all of the iteratives thereof, and knows all the information, and of course the long history of Dungeons and Dragons, the modules, the characters, the books, novels that have been written, and that part of geek culture, the person who knows everything and keeps up on everything, is part of the fun. Unfortunately, that type of fun is limited because there are others who could care less, and there are corporate interests that where canon and your type of fun don't mix together. And I think the message wasn't necessarily sent out to the role players. I think it was sent out to the. I mean, I don't think it was only meant for them. I think it was sent out because I think WotC and Dungeons and Dragons is going to be branded for many things, from far beyond T-shirts and dice and cup holders to something. I think it's going to get into movies and television and other novelists out there, and that means that they are loosening up the canon. That Dritz Duerden may not necessarily come from the Underdark, or they may rewrite the Underdark, or what we know of in the Forgotten Realms might change based on what kind of how we're interacting with it with other IP. And I think they're just warning us about that, which I shrug. um, Role playing has always been something that we create collectively with the people we know, that has no bearing on the collective influences from any other group out there. It's what you make of it. Whether you change the Star Wars canon and say, Darth Vader is still alive. That's in your world. There are no canon police running around. But like I said, some people hold on to the knowledge with a tight grip and white knuckles, like, please don't change you change the canon. It's like Dungeons and Dragons has had an extremely loose canon over the years, and it'll always change. It's the same argument about comic books. Why'd they change it from the comic books? And I'm like, because even the comic books have changed it from the comic books, and I've been reading since what is the late '70s through like the mid 2000s or something. So yeah, yeah, Mufas is yeah, WotC settings are going to become a lot like Star Wars canon. Use whatever version of it you like best, and disregard official canon if you don't like it. But and it's weird because that's always been the rule. Like, I mean, I suppose there might be some people out there that might get upset that Elminster's dead and Mordenkainen is an evil lich or something or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. I never considered any of that stuff to be one and the same. I suppose the origins of mind flayers and beholders and other strictly Dungeons and Dragons elements might change as well. In when you view it from other directions, like maybe in new novels or graphic novels or movies, that kind of thing might quote unquote change. But I hell, how many times have I mentioned, oh, reskin your monsters, make any origin you want? So clearly I don't have a dog in the fight, but whatever. Mufa says, I've encountered a lot of Star Wars players and GMs that get upset if you do something in a game that is not canon. Right. It's like, well, it, t- even the creator of Star Wars has changed their own canon. Anybody remember Samuel L. Jackson requesting to be in a movie and gets a purple lightsaber? D- Believe you me, he pulled that out of his ass at that moment. And then people retconned that into the world, but there was no deep canonizing of that. It was, oh, he's a friend of mine, I want him to be in my movie, let's make him look little. You know what I mean? Even the people who created this stuff don't do those kind of things. So yeah, it's pretty weird. I find it very strange. Michael mentions yeah, WotC canon with regarding Forgotten Realms or other settings is the reason I homebrew likely 80%. And so do the rest of us. Purple lightsabers existed. Darth Revan did Darth Revan exist before Samuel L. Jackson first appeared in a movie? I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure they existed in a video game. Did like did it? How do I say this? Um, did it exist at the beginning of it, or did a video game creator go, oh, let's give this person a purple lightsaber, and then we create? Oh, okay. But yeah, but at some point it didn't exist, right? Until it did, which is I always find strange about canon. When R.A. Salvatore writes a book, it's not like the next 30 books were already pre-written. He sat down and wrote them and then added in canon that didn't exist before you read the book, right? So it's weird. It's just like we I think we put these people and the people who create the canon on a higher pedestal than the rest of us. They're just creators. They are no more or less creative than the rest of us. They just have a larger platform. So, if they happen to be a great novelist or a great, writer for movies or directors or script writers or t-shirters. I don't know people who print t-shirts, printers or something. You know what I mean? I just find it funny. All right, let's get into this brings up a point of, since today is world building and I want to talk about world building, and I want to talk about um, some people ask, how do you create a setting? And we're going to focus on one method. One of the methods is starting big and going small, and we're going to talk about going small, starting small and going big. And this relates to our ability to disseminate canon to your players in a world they don't know in small, simple ways. And one of those ways of starting small and going big is to I'm getting cat hair. My producer walked across my keyboard earlier this morning. Um, anyway, one of the methods is to um, generate small things that are unexplained on their surface that we know they have a greater meaning that your players encounter, and then during that encounter, they then want to ask you more questions as to why that thing happens and where it is. Mike says, true, canon evolves over time. Comic books is a great example. Exactly which is the canon version of the Joker? Exactly. Which Flash is canon? Superman's canon has changed a lot. That's just DC. Marvel's equally a mess. Oh, and not only that, they also make money by rebooting the canon in the first place. That's why when people are like, "You changed it from the comic books," and I'm like, "Which comic? which which comic are you talking about? Are you talking about the Spider-Man where the guy he didn't stop that stole the money ran all the way to his house and shot Uncle Ben, or the Spider-Man where the guy who stole all the money shoots Uncle Ben that's sitting outside the library, right, and tried to carjack him? Which one is that? Yeah. Deadman says the old D6 Star Wars TTRPG game system had over a dozen colors for the lightsaber crystals. Sure did. And the Mayfair D6 original D6 Star Wars game, if you guys don't know this, I know Deadman probably knows this, that they used concept art from the movies, gave them background information and made them an in-world thing. And then the later creators for the animated series, the other movies, the novels, used that canon that was created in the role-playing game and back channeled it back into Star Wars. So the people who were commissioned to or decided, however that contract went to make the D6 Star Wars game and use the concept art, they actually created the canon of the starships and things and robots and whatnot, and then it was back channeled back into it. So yep. Caius, hey, what's going on there? I like a level of canon to give GM and players a shared knowledge of the world. The problem with a lot of canon is when did you encounter it, right? Like if you purchased, I'm gonna guess trying to give an example. Like if you purchased a player's handbook and never purchased Xanathar's Guide, or what's the other one, Tasha's Cauldron, does that mean you're wrong? Right? If you'd never bothered to purchase those books, you never follow the Unearthed Arcana, you never read any of the D&D novels, does that make you wrong? And that's where it's like, no, your canon is what your group agrees upon and what you find enjoyable. So the MCU and the DCEU have affected comic book canon and vice versa. Yep. That's why Nick Fury looks like Samuel L. Jackson today, right? They backfilled it, and that's why I'm like, like I said, there's one of the types of fun are people who like to hold on to the knowledge that they have learned, but that knowledge that you learn, it can change in an instant. So, whatever. Heck, the new Amazon Prime series for Lord of the Rings is probably going to change some canon that people are going to go like, "Oh, stupid! You changed J.R.R. Tolkien's plot." Not even wondering whether like is the show going to even be any good? Maybe we should worry about that first before we get our feelings hurt. All right, so much like if we travel to a foreign country and we are not we are inundated by cultural norms that we are not used to. For example, near my home, you really can't hear it from my house, but very close by, you can hear the bell toll for people who are Muslim, and they pray for the day. If you've never been exposed to that, there aren't people going around not tapping you on the shoulder explaining to you why people are doing a thing. You would just hear a noise, and then you would see people performing their actions. And one way to give across to your players a lot of information in a short amount of time, and to to generate questions because you want your players to explore your world and to find out why things exist in your world is to have people have just go about their day, their daily lives, and see and experience things that may not make any sense to them at face value until they investigate further into your world. Yep. Yeah, yeah. I see how canon triggers people. Mike says Nick Fury being black is part of the same universe as Miles Morales, Spider-Man. I can't remember what number it was. When that universe collapsed, they just rolled over the Samuel Jackson version. Yeah, and guess why they collapsed the universes? Because it's too freaking complicated. Why do you think they even have other multiple universes in the first place? So that other writers can create their own canon that's outside the normal canon, but then even that gets convoluted. So what do? They make an event, Secret Wars, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and so on, iterative uh, uh, things that go on. And then what they do is they literally shred the old canon, throw it away, and start off new. That's exactly what those things are for. Yeah, it's a storytelling element, but it's because they got to get rid of that. Yep, yep. They just happen to have the right actor to pull that off. Yeah, Nick Fury. What is it? Nick Fury from the '90s looked like David Hasselhoff. No, no, he. Nick Fury looked like Nick Fury. They just happened to get David Hasselhoff. But yes, people forget David Hasselhoff did play the Nick Fury. Yep. They collapsed the universe because of comic sales. They sure did. Yeah. Money, 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 money. Yeah. Well, they're a business, right? They're gonna. I don't know why people are like so confused about a business for making business decisions for their business. That's weird. A underscore says they don't even have the rights to all the stuff in the old universe anymore, which messes things up even further. Yeah, you're right. Yep, absolutely. It's all business. It's why they're not going to make a Hulk movie, an individual Hulk movie any longer. It's because they share the rights with Universal for production and dissemination, and they don't want to share the profits. Yeah, Mike says more on topic. World building canon comes down to what you can make your players invest in, and and the things that they don't invest in. If you haven't introduced it in the world, it doesn't exist. Just because you have a 50-page document of this entire culture that's on the other side of the mountain valley, and the players never go over there, technically it doesn't exist. Yeah, '90s Nick Fury looked like Robert Stack. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Deadman. Yeah, Deadpool, and like Deadpool kind of doesn't fit into canon as well. Ever since he started breaking the fourth wall, so She-Hulk for a short period of time was a fourth wall breaker, making jokes and things like that at the expense of the readers and whatnot. Yeah. All right. One of the things, one thing I'd like to do is um, talk about things that people see and encounter in your world, whether they are people's behaviors. Food and clothing is a good example. Architecture and items and things that are around. And again, using real world examples, small statues or monuments or idols or something that are at the front of doors with sand and little people sticking incense into them and walking away. Is that something you normally see in your daily life? Maybe that's something you normally see and you don't see somewhere else. Or as a visitor to this place, maybe you see something that happens. And a lot of great elements can be generated from little small things, whether it's particular colors or clothing items that people wear, seasonal items, maybe types of food that people eat. I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, tri-state area, Philly, New Jersey, and Delaware, and big seafood place. So I grew up on it. Moved out to the Midwest. A lot of people aren't like that. So yeah, yep. Mike says, for instance, if you If you describe your world as being a shattered world somehow magically held together by magic, the second one, the second one player doubts that canon will start to fall apart. Um, that you know what that reminds me of a thing that players. It this happened. I forget what video it was about. Where we did the five worst players video, and I've seen this from other content creators out there in the YouTubers, and one of those are uh, I think it was Professor Dungeon Master, if I'm not mistaken, that said this. But no, Seth Sikowski, shit, I can't remember his name. Um, One of his was the player that always tries to break the boundaries. Like they're always trying to their whole point is to try to dig deep enough to the point where the world doesn't exist in a reality they understand, and then they fold their arms and go, see, this isn't a real world, you weren't prepared. It's like no, I didn't write down the extended family of the blacksmith. I don't know who their second cousin is. And then they're like, see, you didn't prepare this world, this I'm you broke the immersion. It's like, whatever. Like Kaya says, I can only drink out of a carved pine flagon. Yeah. Mike says She-Hulk broke the fourth wall first. There were other smaller characters out there like Impossible Man, and I can't remember. There was another one out there that used to do dumb stuff like that. Like Kaya says, I don't wear blue. It's the color of evil. And the PCs are like, what? Yeah. Everyone's looking at the PC, spitting at them because they got a blue cloak on. Like, what are you doing? This is my cloak of the sea. It's my favorite magic item that I attune to. Kaya says they never invite anyone into their house in this area in case they are a vampire. Yeah, and now using what you just mentioned there, Caius, the first part, they never invite anyone into their house. We know some vampire culture, like stake through the heart, garlic, running water, holy symbols, daylight, uh, evidence of drained blood with the bite marks, being invited into the house. We mirrors, reflections. It goes on and on and on, right? And that is both a great way for players to both assume and not know what the hell's going on by people PCs want to go in someone's house and no one invites them in. I'll talk to you outside while while the family closes and shuts the door, and you see the person grabs a sharpened stake and puts it in their belt loop, and the PCs are like, it must be vampires, right? Because we have that shared canon, but maybe it's something more than that. Maybe it's not vampires, maybe it's something else. And it also triggers a thing. They're not inviting us in the homes. Now we automatically build in our heads this, oh, we have this shared mythological experience because vampires don't exist in the real world that automatically extends into our fantasy game. And so I love stuff like that, like the you know people having judgments over colors. They maybe people are adorning themselves with like flowers, or they're cooking certain kinds of meals, or everyone everywhere does a thing at a particular time and place, or they say certain words, or they approach the player characters and talk to them as if the players understand the conversation first. The old lady goes and grabs the hand of the barbarian and is like, I am so sorry, you will not live to the end of the day, and walks off. And they're like, what? What happened? What did you say to me? Like, no, you're probably no, you're going to die at the end of the day, and I'm so sorry for you and your family, right? And it's like, well, how do you know, and where did that come from? And the players start generating those things in their head, and as the players start talking out loud about what the hell just happened, guess what? We get to steal the idea. Anyway, Mike says player investment, however, can also be a player issue. Yep. Some players have problems with immersion. I find that DM commitment to a setting helps. If you can explain something off the cuff, like it was real and build belief, it usually works. Sometimes I, I I'm gonna disagree with you on one part of this, Mike, and that is there are some players who feel like it's their job to go out of their way to create disbelief, right? Like, hey, everyone's involved in this shattered world, and there's a spelljammer like craft that sails from different islands, and I think there's some players who find it that it's their mission to challenge the DM and the world to find the cracks in it, rather than it being a natural evolution of, oh, this thing just happened to take me out. I think there's people out there who do that on purpose. It's the people who watch movies and look for all the mistakes, right? It's like, it's not like, and they'll go, it's blatant that mistake is there. It's like, no, it wasn't. You had to pause the movie and zero in on it. Right? No one saw that thing happen. They left the boom mic in the wind in the picture, and it took me out of the movie. Like, yeah, right. Until you stopped it, zoomed it in, found it on Twitter because somebody else pointed it out to whatever. Caius of Glantry says you must finish shaving before dawn or wait until sundown. Your beard cannot be touched in sunlight. Why? Why is that a thing? Right? Mike says, so regional lore versus world lore is a thing. Exactly. I look at it like subjective truth versus objective truth. I like ice cream is a subjective truth. It applies to a person. The sun is a star, is an objective truth. As it cannot be argued due to science. World truths like magic kills life, like in Dark Sun, differs from you must drive on the right hand side here, regional law or behavior. Oh, hells yes. And it's also a great way to subvert expectations because it's the goblinoid hordes are evil, go over valley, go through the valley range, get over to this other side. Goblinoid hordes are our best friends, right? And it's or the lizard folk keep attacking us. PCs encounter the lizard folk and come to find out that they are lizard folk, kobolds, Sahogan, troglodytes, dragonborn, draconian, nagas, yuan-ti, right? It's the no, this is what we understand and what we believe and what we do. That has no bearing on what the people over there do. And it could be cultural, it could be environmental. Uh, the the Northern Vikings versus the Southern French peoples, they're giants. Well, they're just a little bit taller than you are, right? But look at their behaviors and religion and uh, combat, how they engaged in warfare and all that kind of business. Caius of Glantry says, or the locals go into the house and expect you to follow without invitation. If the stranger doesn't follow, it is a clear sign they are a vampire. Yeah. Um. Uh. Lots of things are acts of they are unspoken acts. The like Kaya says, going into the house and you're expected to follow. The person who goes into someone's home and is offered something to eat or drink, and you refuse to partake in the meal. That to you, you're like, no, I'm not hungry. Don't worry about it. They're looking at you like, maybe you feed on people's dreams and nightmares, you son of a bitch, right? Like they don't tell you this, but it might be a sign of peace. Hey, we might be enemies, but when we sit down and off drink tea or smoke hookah, we are temporary allies. Or what is maritime law? If your ship is sinking, maritime law states that if you hear uh, um, a call for help, you go and help those individuals. That kind of thing. Mike Gould says problem players are their own issue. Yeah. That comes down to an issue where the table needs to cull the issue. Yeah. I didn't disagree with you. I just think there's certain people who they don't like to play the game. They like to play you. He goes on to say, example, orcs are violent brutes. In Thul, orcs of the Spearlands are an Arctic variant, typically cannibalistic due to food shortages, and will hunt parties. Orcs of the Iron League are highly organized, falling into a military dictatorship ruled by warlords and a ruling religious council. Exactly. And that's why I feel like um, I feel like changing canon might be too much of a harsh thing. I think reimagining canon I think might be better. Like for example, we know that Watsy's talking about uh, expanding what we think of as drow elves. That Menzo Baranzan isn't the only place that drow elves live, and it's not the only type of government and social order. And some people were just like thrown off by that. But I'm like, well, it is one location, and there's nothing stopping other locations from existing. So why wouldn't that be a thing? But Princess Broadhammer says, you come to a city. They make you wait until sunrise until they let you line up to enter the gates. Each person in the line has the end of a lit sunrod placed in their mouth. Anyone who flinches or refuses is turned away. No explanation is given by the given by the gruff guards. And I absolutely love those kind of things because, like, sometimes you can even throw in these kind of behaviors, and even you don't know why they do it. Now, of course, that's feeding off of the vampiric ideal, right? Someone with a small polished copper plate in their hand holds it up and reflects a little bit of sunlight in your face, and you're like, what are you doing? What they're really looking at is the reflection in the mirror or what have you. Or the very first meal you have, they sprinkle garlic all in it. I believe there's even something. Oh, there's something similar to it about salt in food. And if you eat a meal with salt and food for 3 days, you are not allowed to take any harm against the people in the home. And I think it's like Persian or something. I've heard it. It's one of these. It's a bit of knowledge fleeting around in my skull. Um, Mike says species can shift from region to region. Yeah. Environment to environment, culture to culture. Making a people defined by a culture is usually a better way to go than how they look. Oh, hell yeah. That's why. And I think all of us have even were like, you know what? Racial features don't really make much sense because why wouldn't every other people learn stone cutting if they lived inside of mountains? Right, not just dwarves, but everybody else would probably be the same exact way. Yeah. Kai's of Glantry says, "I like the sunrod placed in the mouth, and a flinch will denote you as an enemy. Some people just don't like strangers putting things in their mouths." Yeah, yeah. Please don't. In the last town they stuck all kinds of weird things in my mouth. I don't want your rod in my mouth. Yeah, dirty, dirty. But um, there might be a logical reason, non-vampiric, for why you might not want something like that, right? Done to you, or maybe maybe you've been told that this cultural norm from these people is somehow evil or vile. We went through the satanic panic with role playing games. That's a thing, and maybe anyone with a spell book is carrying the Necronomicon and they must be killed, right? And the wizard's like, "What the hell? Give me back my book!" As the angry mob tries to surround them or whatnot, because they just look at them like they're an evil lich, or they will be. Mike Gould says, using the world of light and dark, there will be communities who have guard animals that can sniff lycanthropes. Yep. And other towns will demand you take in a mouthful of salt to abate worm infestation. Yeah, we've been talking, for those who don't know, Caius, that we have a document. Actually, let me share that out here. We have a document here that we've been working on a little bit at a time, and I've been typing in some details here, and we've gotten to the darkness part. Let me move back up the document here, where we talked about light, blazing sunlight, and we talked about worms, and each section of this is post-apocalyptic, kind of dangerous to live in, and we have little categories like animals. Actually, I guess you could call it animals, and beasts, um, adversaries, antagonists, and so little by little we've been filling in some of these. Haven't filled in as much as we could in the light and darkness, and then we can go on down here. It's sludge and murk, and these are just general categories that we'll fill in over time. And excuse me, I'm going to working overtime. I apologize for that. Got a lot of cat stuff. Oh man, my computer is in a closet, and you know how computers get static electricity, and it kind of swirls around because I have a where my hands are stopping. That's where the closet door is, and it's kind of a funky thing. Sorry about that, guys. Mm-mm-mm. Using here we go. M squared mentions there might be a logical reason that the guards insist you have to wear a face covering or mask before you enter a shop. Exactly. Now, and sometimes those things are they could just be tradition. The reason for uh, all the people in the city wear these nondescript masks or face coverings or something, and that could be a legacy thing. Like maybe the people don't question it; they just do it. On the other hand, it might be it might have had logical reasons. Maybe there's some monsters that look at the fear in your face, and if you cover your face, they can't see the fear, they go away, and everyone knows this. And so, you know, that's why that you see people with on their belt, they have like three masks like dangling from it. And when people leave the house, they put on a shroud that covers their face or something, you know. So there might be an actual real danger why people do a thing, but then there's also sometimes it's just habit. You know, you walk out the door and the little shrine is there, and you rub the shrine, the Buddha's belly for luck, and you go into work. You might not even realize why you even did the thing. You know, everyone here wears it's the wearing of a kilt versus pants. It's the putting on makeup. It is long or short hair. All those little things might mean something in a larger context. And I love the idea of having things that elicit a question, but you don't answer it until your players ask the question to find out what the hell is going on. Mike Gould says perhaps the community will be populated by people who only wear red for a reason having to do with their local lore. And perhaps another city all wear veils. Another community will outlaw hats and helmets. Exactly. Like, for example, there might be a community that has survived due to its alliance with doppelgangers, and that it's almost they've embraced the doppelganger lifestyle of sorts. And maybe the neighboring community is like they're all liars and thieves and spies. You can't trust them, you know. But this one group is like, no, we have doppelganger blood. It runs in our families and stuff, and you don't understand our lifestyle. You know? Yeah. Michael says each will have a reason built into local canon. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Take your helmet off. Why? Because we told you to. That's why. Yeah. Michael Marin says, "Oh man, my players love ridiculous hats and helmets. Having them outlawed would immediately cause drama." Exactly, and interest. Now, here's some. I'm just going to say this. This is another thing with problem players. Sometimes players will make characters that don't fit into the world, and that annoys the shit out of me. And what I mean by characters that don't fit into the world, if your world, let's say they have toll roads, or you go to the city state and they say, hey, it's going to be one copper for you, another copper for your mount, and oh, you've got weapons, that's a third copper, you need to put it in you know, hand over the copper pieces. There's some players that are like, they ask for copper pieces, I'm going to murder them, right? Or they get all pissed off about a thing, rather than make a character that, despite the fact they may not like that cultural norm, they understand that that culture exists, like a islander culture. The amazing hookah dance that's done in like islander culture, whatnot. Here in the United States, we don't do that, but Hawaii is part of the United States, so It's not like it's outlawed or it's evil or whatever. No, it's like, oh, that's amazing because it's part of that culture. Yet we don't do it, and but we understand why it exists. You know what I mean? It's that dichotomy. It's like, yeah, we just because we don't do a thing doesn't mean we don't understand that a thing exists. And it annoys the shit out of me when players make a character that's like, everything that's not part of my character is stupid and I'm going to murder it. You're like, stop. Um, Mike says a community might have one person who must sit in the town square and ring a bell every hour. The current use is to tell time, but it may have been a method in the past to show that life existed. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Ringing the bell to let people know that everyone's not dead in the town, or maybe 1,687 tolls of the bell for each life lost. Arlington Cemetery in Virginia, the tomb of the unknown soldier, 21-foot carpet walked 21 times with military soldiers, done for the most part 24 hours a day, under guard, right? It's a thing. Michael says so much lore might become perverted in a town where the undead rule. Yeah, players will be duped into entering the city because a lone zombie continues to ring the bell. Ow, ow. Yeah, yeah. Mike says, "Amen, DBJ." Players who refuse to follow any lore and build implausible characters really piss me off. If I say guns exist, be guaranteed one will build an aquatic character who who claims to know about guns despite gunpowder not existing underwater. Yeah, 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 yeah. God, dude, now. Of course, I get it that some people want to create they want to create the special snowflake character, they want to create the Ooklas. They want to create the Wookiee of the group. They want to be the special divergent character that isn't seen anywhere else because they come from a distant land that no one's ever visited before, and this person is naive about the world that they've come into. But even naivete doesn't translate into becoming a murder hobo, right? Like, if for those who don't know, if you drive the east coast of the United States, there are toll roads everywhere. You cross from one bridge over another, it's a toll. You go down I-95 and get to 76, but it's a toll. You pay another toll. Florida is the same way. You get on a main highway, great. You go off into a small community, toll road, 50 cents, $1.25, blah, blah. Just because you don't know a thing doesn't make you go like pull out a weapon and start shooting people. You go, fuck, another toll. Reach into pocket because it became unexpected. Drop change into machine and go ahead. Right? It's there are things in life. Um, some people invite you in a home. They expect you to take your shoes off, or you go into their home and you need to ask permission. Oh, we as a kid, you don't sit on the furniture in the living room, right? It's that kind of stuff, and you just shrug your shoulders and go, "Oh, I didn't know. Sorry." Princess B says players making characters that don't fit is the number one reason I have to intervene in character creation. Yeah, session zero, right? I ran a historical campaign that took place in the Troubles in Ireland, and everyone was supposed to be a member of the same Irish gang. Okay. Ooh. Um, one guy, one guy wanted to make a British soldier and got mad when I told them no. You. Oh, that's annoying. And you know what? That's why. Listen. Um, we okay. Here's another thing too that is going to throw people off and going to get people mad on either side of this issue. That and this really does have a lot to do with like historical games and things of that nature. If you, why would you? If I'm going to play in a game with like Vikings and someone's like, I'll pick Lloyd because Caius was hanging around, right? So Lloyd Collins, he created Isklof. It's a Viking centric thematic 5e version of it. And so I go, oh yeah, I'll play in the game. And they go, hey, let's all play the game. And then I show up and I go, well, I created a samurai, and can I play this character? And everyone's just going to be like, don't, like, what? okay, sure, I could, if I really wanted to, stretch credulity and go, well, maybe my character traveled far and wide. Maybe I got there, like 13th Warrior, right? With the Persian or Arabian character that shows up in this Viking homeland or whatever. But on the other hand, if I agreed to play in a world of Vikings, why wouldn't I just make another Viking thematically styled character? Right? Like, why wouldn't I do that? It's just crazy. Um, so Michael says that bell it rang 29 times for each life on the on the Edmund Fitzgerald earworm cast. I don't know that. That's a reference I am not familiar with. Uh, Mike talk to Princess. I feel your pain, Princess. I ran a game where everyone were casters in a land where magic was illegal. So one player rolled up with a hunter. Yeah. There's always that one, right? You tell them it's. Have you? Okay, I'll say this. Have you ever noticed in any role playing game ever created, they'll have a blurb at the end of a thing and it'll say, talk to your game master, dungeon master, storyteller, whatever, about using this feature, right? They'll have 3 pages of a thing. What's one? Playing an anti paladin, or what do they call a hell guard, or whatever the case might be, or it doesn't matter. You flip through the book, and there'll be this thing, and they will specifically say this thing is problematic, and at the very end of it, it will say, please talk to your dungeon master, game master, storyteller, timekeeper, whoever. How many times have rules lawyers spoken to their dungeon master about the thing that the rules specifically tell you to talk to your dungeon master about a thing? I will wait. No, they don't, right? Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Um, doing a hard segue back into the light and darkness, I thought it would be kind of cool in a world where there is a culture of people that live in bright light and total darkness, and there is very little gray area, very little shadow. It's either blazing sun or the purity of light and goodness, or darkness, and it is supposedly not evil, not goodness, but they think it is. Let's put it that way. What elements or what behaviors or what cultural things could we have? Let's see. Princess B mentions even Tolkien ran into this issue, and RPGs weren't even a thing yet. Everyone is pumped about being dwarves questing for a conquered dwarven hold, and one dick rolls up with a hobbit. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah. I love it, B. I love it, Princess B. Yeah. They called him a burglar. He was the burglar. The wizard who created these golems and undead implanted his own customs and taboos in them. Ooh, that makes sense. They have illogical little customs and habits that they follow. Um, like undead reenacting their old lives before their deaths, and no one understands why the undead are like knocking on a door or trying to grab the reins of a horse. The zombies trying to feed has an empty bucket, thinking they're casting out feed to the chickens at a farmhouse that's burnt down and is old and decrepit or something, right? Michael says, I had one player approach me with a desire to play a death cleric. We had probably an hour-long conversation. Here we go. Where we did cooperative world building. I like to keep enough empty space to continue the world build. You know what? It's like, yeah, the player that doesn't want to communicate, like, hey, I want to play Dragonborn, and you go, in my world, there aren't really monstrous races. They're all like hated. And you're like, well, I want to play a Dragonborn. And you're like, okay, do you want to play a dragonborn, or you just want a character that breathes fire? Right? Like, is that what you're looking? Are you looking for the mechanical aspect, or do you want to play a scaled, tailed or non-tailed individual? And then if you do, a major part of my world is that most people are humans, and all the other races are, it's. I know players do that all the time. It's like there's nothing wrong with your character. There's something wrong with you playing the character today. Warm bodies. Touched on that. Yep. Zombies doing things like they did when they were alive. Yeah. Warm bodies was actually kind of cool. Funny. A little bit of a comedic look at zombies, like still performing their old behaviors, knocking their heads against walls and trying to open up doors and things. And then you find out that they are trying to make these connections again, that they are dead inside. But if they can only find love again, right? But yeah, I don't think we're going to go into it because I do have to get out of here. But guys, thank you so much for just being part of the show. Yeah, maybe I need to change the thumbnail a little bit. Maybe you need to do that. Rest assured that, yeah, A underscore says, was the zombies doing menial tasks something that was established in the original Dawn of the Dead? Symbarum, the RPG, also went with that idea. I'm going to say yes, because I think it's been around long enough that it's a thing. Now, and mind you, it also depends on how intelligent your undead are. I think more intelligent undead in terms of stories, not RPGs, but I'm like movies, television, all that kind of stuff. I think we see them trying to perform their old lives more often than the mindless zombies and or skeletons, but I think it's been around a while. I think it has. What was the one? And part of that is the I think also is the people get bit or infected, and then they start to, during that transitional phase where they start to turn, they are still behaving like their old selves, kind of, but they get the dark lines under their skin. They start to lose their voice and they start to hiss. Yeah. Dead Man says it was more of a thing in Day of the Dead. Mm. I'm not a zombie connoisseur, aficionado. Yeah, but I think it makes sense though, especially with the when zombies. What's the classic thing that zombies do when they hibernate? I don't know the proper terminology for it. Where they huddle and herd together, swaying mindlessly, that sometimes you'll find them trying to do things that they did in their old lives. And then, of course, our protagonists come upon them, zombies see them, and they either become walkers or runners and stuff. Mike says, no, I'm thinking of a plot line where someone tries to rehabilitate a zombie. There was a movie, a really good movie that was a modern day take on it, where the entire world was infected by the zombie virus. You guys have to find this movie. Okay, everyone in the world was infected by this zombie virus, but they hadn't become zombies yet, and all the people were going to these clinics to get inoculated against the zombie virus to prevent them from turning into zombies. But the way they created the inoculations, they were running out of them. And the plot was this one lady worked at one of these inoculation centers, and she had these neighbors that had a lot of money, and they were willing to buy them in the black market. And then she had a boyfriend who was tested and had the virus and stuff. And society was like making the zombified versus the unzombified, and the kids were going to school with each other, and they were picking on each other. It was pretty good. It was a low budget movie, but it was pretty good. I want to say it was foreign to the U.S., like a British movie or something. I don't know. Michael Marin says, as A underscore says, I think the Dawn of the Dead Link was the mindless zombie, like nature of shopping mall trawling. Yeah, crowds emulating the same behavior thoughtlessly. Yeah. Mindlessly, we are the mindless consumers. Which, come on, we know that the whole zombie thing. Uh, Although some movies have moved away from this, classically a lot of horror movies were a dark reflection of our own behaviors in society, and much like the bad kids get killed first because they're having unprotected sex and drugs and rock and roll and drinking and just being having rebellious nature, so that a lot of those movies did those dark reflections of society. And zombies were a great way to go like, oh, this is you on drugs, but it's just a zombie instead. Yeah, Michael says there's a movie about children who have the zombie virus, but they're not zombies, they're cannibals. Perfect Girl or something. It follows one girl trying to deal with her urge to eat flesh. Yeah. Yes. um I remember the image of the young girl with the uh oh, what's the mask? The Silence of the Lambs mask on her face. Yes. Yeah, yeah, I get that image. Yeah. What was it? Vampires are a reflection of nobility and elites. Zombie hordes reflect capitalism, etc. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Vampires being nobility and elites. Yeah. What's the term or modulation of the term? Eat the rich. It was, of course, the rich people are feeding, literally feeding on the blood of us, commoners, of us hardworking folk. That's all they do is feed on they're vampires sucking away at our hard earned lives or whatnot. So yeah. Yep. Yeah, Mike says the plastic mouth guard. The image is in my head, and I'm looking at it on Amazon Prime that airs here in the States, and it's I can't find it. So anyway, guys, again, with me trying to get out of here. Thank you very much for being here. Today's episode, we went off the rails a little bit, but we do that a lot. But just rest assured, we will get back on track and continue the conversation. Honestly, there was more that I was going to go into, but I started off on a bad point anyway, off subject, and we just went down a rabbit hole. So whatever. Uh, yeah. Ooh, antiviral. Maybe that's it. Mm, maybe. Rod Eternal. Yeah, Rod Eternal, shiny and undead. Wait. Brains. Yeah. Zombies. Guys, thank you so much. I will see thee later. Oh, here's a weirdism that you may not know. So you guys know that I use the streaming service Restream. And apparently I'm like in the top 95 plus percentile of their analytics of those who use Restream, of interactions, time streamed, um, platform usage, the whole 9 yards. It's really weird. I'm like, that's kind of cool. So I'm proud in a geeky kind of way. So it's awesome. Anyway, guys, we've hit the hour mark. You guys have a great one. At least an hour mark for myself. I will see thee later. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow for Third Pillar of Exploration.